Okay, I want to do an update with Miss Rarely Wrong. She's a little bit yelling today. But this is kind of what happens when we go through rehab with different horses. We find out underlying issues that are kind of outside of the training realm, but are affecting the training. So with Rarely Wrong, she just got her blood work done again today. And her liver is basically finally back to normal function. There's a few numbers that are still iffy, so we're going to make some changes very slowly. So I've continued working with her on the long range. She can trot if she wants to trot, but otherwise I'm just working really on the walk. And little by little, her coordination has gotten better. Her muscles have relaxed more. She's typically more calm and relaxed than she has been in the past, but it's still a work in progress. When she loses the stability of her back and hindquarters, you'll see her neck go to the outside. And then as she lengthens her neck, she'll also straighten it out, which is reflecting the stability through the hindquarters and the back. And right now it's in kind of an in-between stage. She's almost able to hold long and low with her neck straight, but not for very long and not as fully as it will be as she gets more stable and more comfortable using her back and hindquarters. So the training, the shift in her posture is a little bit of work in progress. It's kind of in an in-between stage. But her blood work today showed big signs of improvements. We also did a fecal. Her parasite load is still a little high, especially after having 2 rounds of strong dewormers. So we're going to make some adjustments to her diet and her deworming program. We're going to try a dewormer she hasn't been on ever before. And because she's eating everything I feed her and having some leftovers, she's not even cleaning it all up, but she's had a very hard time regaining weight. Even though her appetite is good, her blood work is better, her behavior is much improved, she's calmer across the board. She's just not putting on weight with any tiny bits of weight, hard earned, easily lost. So we're going to start adding a little protein. The vet thinks it's safe enough to her liver to start adding a little more protein to her diet and hopefully build up that muscle and increase the fat slightly, because both of those dietary changes, whether it's supplements or a regular diet, have an impact on the liver function. So we've had to be very, very careful. And as she's feeling better, acting better, moving better, she kind of looks worse, like her coat has been dull. I had to treat a little bit of rain rot, and she just isn't putting on weight with any regularity or quickly. So we're just going to make a couple of adjustments and hope that her liver function continues to improve and doesn't get worse with the first few changes. And if all that goes well, then we have a couple of other supplements to give her to both boost the immune system, which seems to still be pretty suppressed. And the vet's thinking what was most likely contributing to the liver dysfunction was probably what's called a fluke, a liver fluke, and it's a type of parasite that you can pick up sometimes in tropical climates, wreak havoc on liver function and make them more and more prone to heavy parasite loads. So we think the antibiotics and the deworming we've done have cleared up that issue. The liver seems to be on the mend. She's definitely showing signs of feeling better. So we're finally able to stop all medication, and then we're going to make a change to the deworming program and her diet and see where she goes from there. So I know she looks skinny. Thank you for your advice on feeding, but the owners are working with 2 vets and a nutritionist, and we're really delicately trying to balance the health and function of her liver with everything that goes into her body right now. So the weight gain or the weight loss or the slowness to gain weight is just what we have to kind of live with for now until the internal stuff is a little bit more on track. So meanwhile, the one exercise we've been able to do is just working on a big circle on the long reins. It seems to keep helping her exercise, which helps her stress levels stay down. It's starting to release some chronic muscle tension, so little by little, while she's working, she can sometimes have the appearance of gaining weight while she's walking on the long reins, which is really just a release of super tight, chronically tight muscles through her back and hindquarter and around her rib cage. The neck and shoulders are typically the last of the muscles to release tension. But when I start to see less and less muscle definition around her hindquarter, when I start to see less definition of the ribs, or less sort of pointiness and angularness to her back and hindquarters, then I know she's releasing muscle tension. So this is just kind of more of an update. I don't think you'll really notice huge improvements at this point from her last video, but the repetition, the practice, all of it little by little is helping her body get back to healthy. And she's a little bit yelling for her friends today, which is not abnormal, but she's not trotting, she's not acting out on it. She's pretty focused and she's not as heavy. Every once in a while she gives me a good tug like that, but typically she's not as heavy in my hand on the long reins, which tells me also she's starting to get better self-control over her own body weight during motion, which means she's starting to improve her coordination throughout. And these rehab projects, they can be full of tangents and side roads, just like rarely with her liver. And we started, I think we found out that her liver was in distress back in October. It's now almost the end of April, and it's taken all these months of medication, keeping her sort of gently working, dealing with her diet, and having blood work done regularly, putting her on antibiotics for almost 60 days, like all of these little things that affect her health are also going to affect her in training. And as she feels healthier, she's calmer, she's less reactive, less anxious, she has more self-control over her movement, and is finally able to start changing her coordination a little more rapidly. So like I said, even though the neck is still mostly to the outside, even though she starts off a little quick, more and more frequently, she's trying to lengthen the neck, and at the same time the neck lengthens, it's less bent to the outside, starts to straighten out a little bit. And what that's reflecting through the neck and the feel of the inside rein is whether or not she's using her back and hindquarters to control her own stability during motion and her own body weight distribution, or whether she's not stable through the spine and pelvis and can't control her own body weight, which is kind of where we started. Because that loss of self-control over movement is what often perpetuates the anxiety, the distraction, the defensiveness, because physically they just don't feel safe in their own skin. So Rarely Wrong is kind of like a big jigsaw puzzle, and we just keep putting the pieces in place, and each piece, sometimes we discover there's a whole section over here that we haven't looked at yet. And that's how rehab goes. So working with vets very closely, and body workers and farriers and nutritionists, all of that has to come together during rehab training, but not one person is going to quote unquote resolve the issue, because especially with horses like Rarely, there's usually multiple issues. It gets a bit complicated. There can be layers of problems. Some of the problems don't really manifest until you start peeling back the first few layers. Other problems can be the side effect of solving one problem. So it really is kind of a jigsaw puzzle that we have to put together with every horse. And what keeps me on track, or tells me when to call the vet, when we need a change, when we need to maybe do more diagnostics, is watching how the coordination, the energy, the behavior, the mental focus, how all of those nonverbal aspects are doing in daily work. Because if it's going the wrong way and I see more stress, more defensiveness, right, more anxiety or tension, it alerts me that something's wrong even if I don't know what it is yet. It could be mental, emotional, or physical. It could be systemic. It could be a pain issue that we didn't know about. It could even be a bad shoeing job, right? It could be multiple things. So the horses are always talking to us, telling us when things are getting better and when things are getting worse. And this is why I don't train for obedience, because when we train for obedience, what we're doing is bypassing what the horse is expressing emotionally or mentally or through behavior, and we can often compound problems that the horse is already having that we don't know about. So I read the energy, and when a horse is calm, I know that they at least feel safe, if not entirely comfortable. They're comfortable for the most part. They're mostly stable, mostly comfortable, and feel entirely safe doing whatever it is I'm asking them to do. If they don't feel safe, no amount of aids or precision or experience on my part can make her feel safe. And sometimes pain issues, health issues, or like in her case, slowly losing the function of her liver was putting her into anxiety where none of the usual strategies I was using to calm horses down would work once she was moving. Everything worked beautifully if she could stand still or if I controlled a slow rhythmic walk. But as soon as she had free choice over how to move, or we went to playing with trot and canter or transitions, everything kind of fell apart and her anxiety level just kept increasing and increasing. That was my warning sign that something was wrong. And at the time we thought, well, it wouldn't hurt to boost her immune system because she's got signs that her immunity isn't very strong. So we ordered that supplement, but before giving yet another supplement to this horse, we did some blood work. And it was that blood work that is how we found out she was in severe liver dysfunction. Like to the point that the vet was shocked at the liver values and the fact that she did not have a fever and still had an appetite. She said usually with numbers that bad, they have a high fever and they definitely go off their food. So rarely didn't do that. She just kept getting more and more anxious whenever she was moving and working, and showed very, very little improvement, which I'm used to seeing a drastic difference, and she wasn't changing very much. Changing a little bit, but not really like what I'm used to seeing. So that, like I said, that was October, November, December, January, February, March, April, 6 months it's taken to start getting her liver back on track. And at this point, it's going the right direction, but there's a few numbers that are not quite right, and so it's a little tenuous. So this is all I can really do with her for now, is keep working her on the long reins where I see her calm down. I see her get her mental focus. I see her posture start to change. I see her looking better and feeling lighter and lighter on the long reins. So less and less support for me. Those are the signs that even if I can't see any outward changes yet, that things are going the right direction. And I can be patient and just keep repeating this because her body is going to change at its own rate and we have the complication of liver dysfunction. So I always want to err on the side of being safe for the horse and reducing stress rather than challenging her in a way that would increase stress. Right? And so I think I'll just show going this direction. This is still her harder direction, and I tend to start this way, and then we go to the left. And to the left, she gets more strides of lengthening her neck and straightening it. But you can see as we're, I don't know, maybe about 20 minutes into this, that now she really wants to kind of lengthen her neck and relax, but when she does, she loses a little bit of stability, a little bit of control over her body weight, and then she pops right back up into a short neck. She bends to the outside, and we start over. So it's just kind of this back and forth, but the more frequently I see her kind of lengthen her neck to the point that her head lowers, I go, that's moving the posture in the right direction, right? Even though the neck's still a little bent to the outside, she's still yelling a bit, she's not always entirely focused, it's better every single time. That and the blood work in the fecal counts is really what's keeping us on track with the training and her overall health. So having her put some weight back on would be wonderful. Having her, excuse me, having her coat shine up and her skin get healthy again, that would be wonderful. But the things I'm grateful for is her feet are in the best condition ever. Her metabolic panels are pretty good, and the liver is finally showing a lot of improvement, getting back to normal on many of the values and only a little bit off on a few key values. So we're still taking it slow. We're still doing a lot of repetition, keeping the work simple and repetitive. And I find with Rarely, the more I work her, the better she does. So guiding her to her, just stabilize her weight left to right and let her find long and low on a big circle by using the long reins, that is helping her body and her mind during this healing process. And it is not uncommon to have a 6-month setback due to a health issue with horses that are going through rehab. It's just kind of part of the picture sometimes, despite our best efforts, despite our best observations. It's just part of restoring the overall health to the whole body. And some people get really attached to like holistic medicine, and other people get really attached to allopathic medicine or regular veterinary medicine or certain diets. And I just keep trying to let the horse show me through, like, the blood work isn't gonna lie. Her, changes in her energy, her willingness to cooperate, her posture, those things are objective things I can assess and look at to know, even if it's not perfect, everything's going the right direction. So body workers, vets, farriers, all of that's important. And I like to work with all kinds of professionals, because sometimes where one good professional doesn't really have either the full picture or the right thing for that particular horse, somebody else might. So I'm very open to things like acupuncture and massage and laser therapies and all kinds of treatments. If the normal stuff, the normal veterinary medicine isn't helping the horse heal, I like to keep looking before I give up. And when I see that the treatment course we're doing is producing results, I don't go around and monkey with it either. I sort of stick to what is working and try to support the body in its healing by not trying to throw too many things at any given horse all at one time. And that's what we tend to do. We panic a little and we'll try 8 supplements at the same time, or 8 big changes, or 3 different vets, or we'll get the opinions of 6 farriers. And unless we try it on that particular horse, we really don't know if that happens to put one of that horse's puzzle pieces together, because bodies are unique, they're individual, even though we all share the same common anatomy and instincts. How she responds to any treatment or what might be going on with her that we don't know about yet, all of that is what makes any treatment either not right or wrong, but appropriate for this horse, or not helpful, right? It's either helpful or not helpful for this specific horse. And I think that helps alleviate a lot of kind of the judgment and blame that we see through the horse world, because most horse professionals are doing the best they can with what they know, and they're trying to help your horse in whatever way they specialize in. It also doesn't mean they have the only answer or the right answer or the right answer at the right time for this particular horse. So without judgment, we don't have to accept a really bad prognosis, and we don't have to give up on a horse if we're not getting results from one course of treatment. We can look around and try some others and see how the horse responds to that given a reasonable amount of time. So same thing with the training. As long as I'm seeing improvements in this long rein exercise, but I don't yet see the full change, I see changes in the right direction, but she hasn't really stabilized in long and low. She hasn't been able to slow her speed down or stay entirely calm and focused for the whole session. So I go, it's still a work in progress. I see things changing in that direction, but they're not there yet. So that tells me just stick with it. Don't change anything right now. Let her body do what it's doing, because it's going in the direction we want. And I have no idea how much time and repetition this particular horse needs in order to make that change in coordination and posture and muscle use. So that's all I wanted to say about Rarely. That's the update for her. And I think I need to catch up on Lexi, but we will see. But Rarely's right now, whoops, I got distracted. I know, you took advantage. I got distracted. So Rarely right now is kind of the most recent addition to the Wexford training barn, and she's the one with the most significant issues out of all 4 of them right now. So she's the most interesting one, and I like to show her process, because the process is not straightforward, it's not predictable even, and sometimes horses look worse before they look better. And I'm hoping this is just that awkward phase for her, part of healing, that she looks a bit worse than she did when she was acting worse and her blood work was worse. She looked better. And now that her blood work is better and she's acting better, she looks worse. And I go, it always just causes me to shake my head and keep going. But the body's a complicated thing. So how bodies heal, pretty unpredictable. And I thought it's important to share when she doesn't look good and when she's in mid-process, because that's the reality of what we go through during rehab. Okay, that's it for her today.